Hey, how's it going and welcome to another video. So today I wanted to talk about a game that I recently finished and ended up really enjoying, that of course being AI the Somnium Files. It came out back in 2019, and even though I was aware of the game, I never ended up getting it since I wasn't sure if I'd end up enjoying it or not. I'm not really a big puzzle-solving kind of guy, and since that seemed to be the game's main focus, I decided to skip out on it. That is, until Fib in my server bought the game for me, so shout out to him for that. He also created this Fither Ota reskin, so thanks? Either way, AI the Somnium Files is a hybrid visual novel and adventure game with puzzle-solving elements that stars Kaname Date, a detective armed with a high-tech artificial intelligence in his eye known as Iba. The two end up entangled in a complicated web of mysteries and murders, which can only be solved by syncing with suspects, a process by which Date explores the dreams of the other person. This video won't contain any major spoilers, but the story for the game really does stand out as being one of its strongest aspects. Although I really love the cast of characters, it really was the plot for this one that had me coming back. Despite being a game about a series of murders where people get their eyeballs ripped out, it also has a totally crack-ass tone. One minute you might be in a straight-faced interrogation with somebody who just lost a loved one, then you're seeing Date ogle a pair of giant badonkeys at an idol agency. One moment you're listening in on a conversation about metaphysical concepts like dreams affecting reality, then Date gets into a comical shootout with Yakuza guys using miniguns. Remarkably, the game manages to kind of just work with these two differing philosophies and embraces the insanity wholeheartedly instead of taking itself too seriously. Most importantly though, it knows how to balance the humor in serious moments, since it ultimately is trying to tell a serious story, just with the most crazy shit imaginable happening in the background. I genuinely found AI to be a really funny game with plenty of moments and lines of dialogues that had me audibly laughing. The interactions between the characters are good fun, and there's lots of moments that are just so bizarre it made me do a double take. Like the line very early on where Boss asks if it's true that tanukis have a 20-foot long ball sack, or the Somnium where Oda does poses to fight a polar bear. It's the kind of stuff that makes for great out-of-context screenshot material. Chances are, even if you haven't played the game, you've seen some of these floating around. It's pretty great. The game is a fascinating cocktail of seemingly random interests all thrown together. You've got stuff like idols and internet culture, mythology, sci-fi, concepts like alternate realities, conspiracy theories about secret societies. It ponders questions like why we dream and much more. It's also loaded to the brim with references to video games, anime, and pop culture in general, but it comes across like the creators had a genuine love for the things being referenced rather than it just being shoehorned in. It's like the sort of nutso video game you think would be cool in a drunken stupor. The kind of elaborate shitpost that your friends come up with at 4 AM. But it's totally real and it's called AI the Somnium Files. But that doesn't distract from the actual story itself, which is a roller coaster ride of twists and turns that just keeps getting better and better. At its core, AI is a murder mystery where people are getting killed in very gruesome ways. And the tangled web of clues, character relationships, dreams, reality, and more all play a role. Like any good mystery, you're never quite sure what's gonna happen next. And there were plenty of times throughout the game where I thought I had it all figured out, only to have that idea be thrown for a loop. The story is augmented by the game's awesome and completely wild cast of characters, which really made it a delight to go through. Kaname Date is our protagonist, and it was great fun seeing the story through his eyes. Date is sarcastic and perverted, but takes his job as a detective very seriously, and is at least mostly no-nonsense when on the job. He provides a good middle ground to navigate this insane crew with, since he's not overly uptight, but not too passive either. It's fun seeing him get irritated with antics from characters like Oda, but there's also plenty of wholesome moments to go around since you see him truly connect with these people throughout the story. Him and the artificial intelligence Iba make for an awesome buddy cop duo. The two poke fun at each other all the time and generally just feel like an old married couple. In the Somniums, he'll often mess around with her, getting her to do stupid or unrelated things for his amusement, and she isn't afraid to clap back with a snarky response. Ota is probably the most painfully realistic character ever written. He's a 20-something weeb neat who's very into one particular idol, and he has multiple Twitter accounts where he argues with himself for her affection. He's also a lazy bumlord who wants to be a writer but never actually writes anything, and spends all of his money on stuff like figures. I can guarantee at least one of the previously mentioned traits applies to everyone watching. His inclusion honestly works really well for the game's setting and weird as hell plot elements. Of course there's gonna be a weeb dorkazoid in a game this weird, it just fits too well. Your mileage with the character may vary. Some people will probably think he's utterly insufferable. I kinda like the guy, I don't know, he's just like me, for real, for real. Mizuki, my daughter, is another one of the game's best characters. She's a pretty interesting depiction of a child character since, despite only being about 10 years old, she's more mature than characters way older than her, and she tries to keep up her spirits and help out despite the awful situation she ends up going through. Her and Date's relationship is great. Despite basically being her foster father, the two are more like an older brother and little sister, getting on each other's nerves in a playful but ultimately endearing way. Despite butting heads from time to time, the two genuinely care about each other, and have a lot of heartwarming moments together. She also lifts, bro.
Bench pressing.
One of my favorite side characters is Moma Kumakura, leader of the Kumakura Yakuza family. Despite being the leader of a crime family, although according to him they've gone legit, he harbors a dark secret. He's a fan of the idol A-Set. His interactions with Date are always a lot of fun to see, since on one hand he acts like a serious businessman with a lot going on, but within about 5 seconds he'll be creaming his pants at the opportunity to shake A-Set's hand. Although he only shows up every now and again, I was really excited to see him every time he did appear. There's a lot of fun characters, and I don't really have time to name them all, but another one of the game's strongest suits is the complicated web of character relationships you end up uncovering. Despite being a relatively small crew, the game gets excellent mileage out of everybody, and they all feel important to the overarching story in some way. Characters you may think have no relation whatsoever might end up being connected in ways you never expect, and you end up feeling like a real detective trying to piece it all together. Although the game is primarily a point-and-click style adventure game, the main gameplay segments consist of the Somniums. In these, you navigate the dreamscapes of various persons of interest and solve puzzles to uncover the truth. I ended up enjoying these a lot more than I expected to. My brain doesn't really work so good anymore, so heavy puzzle solving kind of makes me nervous, but they're really not that complicated. Most of the Somniums are pretty straightforward and can be solved without too much difficulty, as long as you're cognizant of your time. The biggest obstacle in your way is the time you're allowed to complete them, since it's used as a resource to progress. Moving around takes up time, as does interacting with objects, but it slows down to a crawl when standing still, giving you some much needed time to examine the area. Having to manage your time becomes one of the more challenging aspects of the Somniums, but you have a lot of ways to minimize the time loss. You can acquire timies, which allow you to alter the time spent doing an action. For example, you can use a timie to cut down the amount of time an action would take by a third, or just reduce it down to a smaller number. However, the inverse also exists. You'll often encounter evil bad boy timies that increase the time spent on action. So learning how to manage them ends up becoming very important to your success. The Somniums themselves are a really cool idea, especially if you're interested in concepts like dreams and what goes on in the human mind like I am. Similar to dreams, they're strange places with a lot of really weird shit going on, but are ultimately based in reality in some way. Many Somniums take place in a location relevant to the case that's been warped by the suspect's mind, like the first Somnium, which features a rapidly spinning and electrified Ferris wheel. Interacting with the dreams may also have completely unexpected results. A seemingly unrelated action might drastically affect the dream and lead you to a solution, and even though this is an interesting idea, I think it ended up being one of my bigger gripes with the game overall. Sometimes solutions to puzzles feel arbitrary, like the cause and effect had little or nothing to do with each other. This can end up being sort of annoying when you waste time trying various solutions, only to find that the one that made the least amount of sense was correct. Luckily, the game isn't overly punishing. You're able to restart the Somniums at various checkpoints to try again, but at least to me it did kind of feel like sometimes the game is just expecting me to solve puzzles through trial and error. The decisions you make in the Somniums end up putting you on branching story paths with multiple different endings and plot elements being revealed. And this route-based structure really made me interested in playing more. You might end up reaching a plot-critical moment or twist, only to be left on a cliffhanger as that particular story route becomes locked, and the game makes you progress in another route. The various routes reveal information that others tend to exclude, giving you a wildly different perspective on the story depending on which one you go down first. Making progress in the various routes is also made super convenient since you can just select the Somnium you want to start from, instead of having to replay entire chapters or, God forbid, the whole game. I ended up really appreciating this structure since it made the game feel episodic, similar to an anime. Instead of having one really long route, it gives you a lot of compact mini-stories stories that all tie together. You end up getting story and character payoffs a lot quicker as a result, which made me more excited to play since there was virtually no downtime. I really enjoyed my time with AI the Somnium Files, and I think it's a game I can recommend to a lot of different crowds. If you like intricate mysteries or adventure games, this one is right up your alley. If you like topics such as dreams, conspiracy theories, science fiction, and other really kooky stuff, then this is probably for you. I think it's also a must-play for people who just like those really odd video games that are becoming more uncommon these days. It's just one of those weird-ass games that was made out of a genuine love for the topics it covers. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, then it's definitely an experience you won't forget. Plus, there is a sequel coming out in 2022, which I'm looking forward to playing, so now's your chance to play before the next game comes out. But yeah, that has been the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.